Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the listeners of the Good Anime Palette Podcast. Welcome to episode 102. You've probably seen that we'll be going over an ASAP. That is right. We are on the 9th iteration of the ASAP, where we'll be covering manga series that will be expecting an anime adaptation in either the coming year or the year following. So at the stage, we probably have some information in terms of when certain series will be debuting. Some will be debuting either in the next season or the season after. Some are slated for 2025 but have not confirmed an official release date. However, for the most part, the ones that we are talking about have at least 3 of them have released trailers for them. So we should be expecting these adaptations to be releasing in the coming year. So without further ado, Will here, Jason here. How you doing, my guy?
I'm doing all right. I feel bad that I had to cut you off earlier because we were actually going off like in podcast mode, except we weren't pressing recording, and we were just like,
we've done that before.
We've done that many times. We've
had like many wasted hours. This could have just been a recording. We didn't. We didn't have to like waste all this airtime and not release it because we get into some pretty good discussions, and then we're like, fuck, we should have recorded that.
Wait, does that mean that we're like content pilled now? Because like we're just in that zone.
It's always like, wow, this is totally like we could totally record this. We could make content out of this. I mean, I get that like it's like we're probably a little too pilled into it, but hey, like sometimes when you're kind of like lost in train of thought, and then you think, wow, this actually would be really good if we had we're totally podcasting this.
Yeah,
shit
exactly.
Right now. Yeah.
So but yeah, the 9th ASAP. I think this time around, the choices that we picked are pretty interesting and varied, I would have to say.
There's definitely a lot of variance in terms of the genres covered. Some that, of course, overlapping, but it's going to be hard when you have new things coming out and you're like, well, only pick one that is pure suspense, one that is pure fantasy, one that's pure action, because there's always going to be an amalgamation of action comedy or romantic drama and such where like you will have a bleed over of genres across the different properties we'll be talking about today. However, in terms of what Jason's mentioning, yes, the sort of general feel, the vibe, and the plot lines of these mangas that will be turning into adaptations are going to be quite like different from each other. And the main thing I wanted to sort of home in with this is one of the few times, I think the last ASAP we did as well, where damn, these are some really good manga. And I am really excited to see how these adaptations are going to be coming out. So let's kick things off with the first installation of this episode, Wandance. Now, to clarify, you will see 2 different spellings of this manga/anime. One that spells it as W-A-N, and the other spelling it as W-O-N. So if you see W-O-N, it's simply because it is transliterating it from Japanese hiragana or katakana, where it's not a wa sound, it's a wo, so it's a W-O. But when it's released in English, therefore when you see it on Viz or you see it probably coming out on your streaming platforms, it will be spelled with a W-A.
And I think it is kind of named after one of the main characters whose name is Wanda.
Yep. So it's based on the ongoing manga series of the same name, written and illustrated by Coffee, originally published in Japanese by Afternoon Magazine, and it's also been published in English as W-A-N-D-A-N-C-E by Kadensha USA since June 28th. So 2022. So it's been running for just under 3 years. Currently, the manga is doing quite well. Popularity 2,126. So fairly popular with just over 10,000 members. Raw score of 7.86. So Jason and I have mentioned this. Anything that's like getting close to it, even if it's above a 7.5, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact that manga get a lot less visibility on my anime list. Online in general, most of the time whenever you do get a lot of hype and noise and news about manga is usually within Japan, and it only slowly bleeds out into the US or the English speaking world once there is either news of an English adaptation or people go through scanlations. So the anime is expected to premiere sometime this year, 2025. I think this is the only one that does not have a trailer at the moment.
Correct. The only promotional material is literally a poster that is yellow in color and then an announcement. So it is going to be produced by Cyclone Graphics and Madhouse.
Yeah, this one's going to be pretty interesting. So I am pretty excited to see how this will turn out. Just to give a kind of a brief synopsis, follows two main characters, Kobuku Kotani, starting out in high school, and he's just basically as run-of-the-mill, as John Doe as any main character can be. He just wants to go under the radar, have fun with friends, keep quiet, not do too much to bring attention to himself. And the main reason why is because he has a bit of a speech impediment. He has a bit of a stutter. And that's why he feels that, whenever he speaks, he doesn't want to, have people look at him and make him feel like he's standing out. So
and feel embarrassed, right?
He just tends to, stay quiet. But one day he comes across another high school student by the name of Hikari Wanda, where she's dancing like no one's watching. Or maybe she just doesn't really give a shit who sees her dancing. And then that makes Koboku wonder, can I do the same? Can I do something out in public or out in the open and not fear who's watching me, who might criticize me, who might be staring down at any faults or any issues that I may have? Lo and behold, they actually turn out to be sitting next to each other in one class. They get talking. He asks her, why do you dance? I dance because I like dancing. Or maybe, why not?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, probably the most obvious but very simple answer.
And through that discussion, then essentially...
Tournament arc.
Yeah. There's a training arc first.
Training arc, yes.
There's an audition arc and then a training arc. Koboku decides, well, if she can do it, why don't I try it out? He decides to join the dance club along with her and learns how to do all the different routines, all the different steps. And essentially you see these two characters kind of just freestyle along life and figure things out through the medium of dance. In terms of, well, first of all, in terms of the amount of manga I read, for the most part, all of these, except for Kowloon generic romance, I only read one volume. I wanted to keep things as condensed as possible. Kowloon, I read 2 volumes for that, but even then, it's like not that much more. So I only really got up to the part where they essentially start the plot, the theme of this, where they actually start getting into the dancing.
Yeah, and that's also the same part where I stopped as well. I read 1 volume of Wandance. The thing that I like about Wandance that I also worry is the music. Obviously, when you are a dance choreography anime,
go on.
You are going to know that the music, the rhythm plays a paramount part, an integral part of your anime adaptation. And when your manga has Bruno Mars and Ed Sheeran in it, obviously no one is expecting you to get those songs at all. But then my next question would then be, well, you kind of have those songs literally written in the manga panels. So it's like, this is the vibe that we're going for. This is the beat that we're going for. So my question would then be, what would you do with that information? Do you ignore it and then just do whatever you as the director or scriptwriter wants? Or you go, let's kind of compose a song that is very much in the same vein as that, song that is being played, and then have them dance. I think that is, to me, the most important question.
It's going to be hard to tell in terms of how it's going to sound, simply because there has been no information on how it will. Outside of the creator, Coffee, who's listed as one of the staff positions on my anime list, there's no other information. There's no sound director. There's no music composition. We don't even know who's actually going to be directing this yet. At least it's not public information. What we do know is, outside of Madhouse and Cyclone Graphics, that the production company that's handling essentially like the production behind the scenes along with the distribution is Asmic Ace, or Asmic Ace Entertainment as they were formerly known. So they're a film production and distribution company. In the past, they've also worked on distributing video games. It was a merger between Asmic and Ace. They've worked with a bunch of different studios. They've actually the name Asmic was actually like a coming of together of 3 different companies, which was Ask, Sumitomo, and Kodansha. So it would make sense that Asmic was picked as one of the production companies alongside. In terms of when I say production, they don't necessarily have to handle the animation side. There's also a lot of different logistical things that will be handled outside of an actual animation studio. So the fact that it debuted on Kodansha makes sense that Aspect Ace would be the one to be handling, I would assume, the distribution of it. So we need to sort of rein in our expectations of it, but you can't help but, sort of wonder, do they have someone in mind in terms of who's going to actually direct the sound of this series, who's going to be able to put together all the music for it?
Right.
And the next part is, which I'm less concerned with, is how the animation's going to play out. Right now, all we have is static imagery, and I got to be very, very honest. It looks goofy as shit when they're dancing in still frame. It's not quite the same as Medalist, where you're seeing they're doing their ice skating routines, because you can at least see like some sort of dynamic like scribbles to show like movement whilst they're doing their pirouettes and their spins in the air.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's like, here's the crab walk, here's the pop, here's the lock, and all that. I'm like, I can't see or visualize it because the panels are so small.
Right. And I also, the other thing that I want to mention, apparently, according to my anime list on August 22nd, 2024, choreographer Ria Hata, known for her works with BTS and BoA, is credited as the dance producer. So that's another extra piece of information that was given. When I think about how awkward it looks, there is, again, guys, we're all mature adults here. There is at one point in the first volume where there is a pelvic thrust towards like the latter third when there's a performance. And it is a pretty awesome sequence in the sense that it kind of tells you, oh, this is really what the manga and now the anime is about. But when I look at it, it looks so odd. But then I also quite like the black and white contrast that they do in the manga, but I don't think that would be in the anime at all. So that's why this one is like the most wild card of the four of the ASAPs that we picked. I mean, Madhouse is good.
I think that's the thing, right? Like, it's always easy to just be like, oh, Madhouse is going to be there, that means it's going to look fine. And if you think that, then I don't blame you at all. In fact, like, the last like 4 productions they've had, which include like the Overlord movie, the third movie, Trillion Game, To Your Eternity, Frieren, as well as Orb.
Orb.
They've all been well received, particularly Orb and Frieren, especially Frieren. So
of course,
you can at least see that the track record that Madhouse have had, at least in the last 2 years, has been really stellar. They've essentially come back from out the ashes and have now made themselves back up on at least like an even playing field, back to their former glory and now their current glory. So you're not going to at least like be worried about how it's going to be animated from a sort of still frame character movement perspective. What I am worried about is how they're going to implement dance moves into an anime, because we've seen a lot of it, and like, this is not including all the idol shows. That's different. Idol dancing is I'm gonna get a lot of flack from this when I criticize idol dancing, because I know that there's a lot of idol stands out there that would be like, don't you dare talk shit about my idols. I fucking love them. I praise them. You cannot.
They're infallible.
Yeah. So like, I'm not doing this to essentially piss off that fandom. What I am saying though is that in order for this to be very well received, and by that I mean anywhere close to what its current MAL score is for the manga, it needs to nail that, right? Because even if you get the music right, if you can't match the movement, it's the same with dance in real life. If you can't dance to good music, then you might as well like go back to the drawing board, practice, relearn, and then come back and do it again.
And so the thing is, right, with all of these idol shows, the choreography obviously plays a component. And the reason why at least for me, why I think usually they are not as good as people want it to be or expect to be, is due to budgetary issues or just due to the constraints, right? Yeah. But I want to mention one anime series in particular that I think is just more of a at least more mainstream, that is called Zombieland Saga. And the 3D and dance there was really bad. Like, it wasn't like horrendous, but it wasn't what it's supposed to be. And it really worries me when, instead of doing idol choreography, you're now doing, I guess, hip-hop freestyle interpretive dance. I think when Will mentioned about with Medalist or like, what is that ballet one that you like by
that
Mappa?
one. Oh my god, I forgot. Let me pull it up.
That's the stars in the eyes.
Yep, I actually really like that one.
Yeah, you did really like that one. I forgot. The name. I think it's Mappa.
It's definitely Mappa. Dance Dancer.
Yep, Dance Dancer. I think in those situations, you can see like the body composition, the poses, and kind of like the kinetic motion of spinning. So, like if I tell you, yo, I do an axel and I spin in the air, you can understand that. But then when I tell you, oh, I pop, lock, and drop it, you will be like, what does that mean?
I think because when it comes to, and again, this is with my extreme amateur, like, couch critic fucking, like, perspective, ballet and figure skating, I think what's more important rather than movement is form, right? If you can't, like, if you can't keep your shit together, it doesn't matter if you can pull off like a 360, 720, whatever fucking spin. If you can't land it properly and show that you have full control of your body and your movement, you're going to get dock points.
And I think there's a lot of history behind ice skating and ballet such that there is, quote unquote, a standard, a kind of thing that is standardized, where obviously when it comes to hip hop and interpretive dance, I think Red Bull does like a really big dance competition every year.
They've been going viral with a lot of shorts on YouTube.
And actually the Japanese people are like winning it left and right.
There's that one guy who essentially does like a pop and lock to like an Indian song, and it's fucking insane.
Yeah.
And, like, the crowd goes wild. Even everybody of every creed is just like, this guy dances. This guy fucks, dude.
And let me tell you, those clips, or if you watch the whole competition, that is the vibe that Wandance needs to be, and I don't think it is possible that they can do that. Now, do I wish they can? I think so. I really want it to be. But
it has to be essentially like pretty high energy for the most part. The reason why you can give it a pass to Dance Dancer and Medalist is because whenever you see like the in-betweens, when they're like outside of like dialogue and plot, for the most part, they're not even like practicing dancing or like doing their movements. They're just focusing on one particular move. They're stretching out one particular muscle, and they're working how to curl your toes so that when you do stand, you pull out that perfect 90 degrees and your toes are pointed in the right direction, and you're maintaining that for however long you are. Otherwise, you're not being able to separate yourself from a C grade dancer to a B grade to an A grade, and then being able to go on stage or hit the ice rink and perform. This, on the other hand, like, you probably don't want to see people just stretching for like 5 minutes, and that's why, like, in the manga, it's like legitimately like one panel of them stretch, and then that's it. Next, here's how you do the penguin walk. Here's how you do the crab. This is how you pop.
Well, the explanation of the crab dance sequence I thought was really well done, because they also show like the foot. They show each kind of segment of the dance move and also show the foot position, which I think was really good edutainment.
It's fundamental.
Yeah,
right? You got to be able to show people like that, hey, we actually know what we're doing, and we're not just having people dance, because that would be a horrible thing to do.
Yes.
Right? If you don't explain how they became to be good dancers or their journey through dancing, then you're essentially missing out one core component, which is character development. Right? In order for them to be able to grow as characters, I think it's gonna be very important for this series, because it's kind of like it's not a coming of age, it's a coming out of your shell.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it.
And if you don't like show them like the progress that they make, or at least like the mistakes and the failures they experience along the way, you've essentially just wiped out like one core component of what makes the characters important to this series. It's not just about dance, it's who's doing the dancing. Right?
And how it's portrayed,
like,
right?
Kaboku's doing it because he wants to be able to be confident enough to do things out in public without feeling ashamed, right? And Wanda's doing it because she doesn't give a shit about what people think about her. She just wants to have fun and express herself. And so to see like these two different characters experiencing the same medium but getting different things out of it, that's going to be quite important. But in order for you to do that, you absolutely need to have a good balance between choreography and music composition. And those are the two things that, you know, outside of you mentioning that there's going to be the dance choreographer working alongside the anime production, we don't have a whole lot of information yet. So we have to, you know, essentially speculate lightly. We can't
Yeah.
we can't just throw things out and be like, oh, this is going to be doom and gloom. They have nothing prepared. We have no idea it's going to look good or not. It's more just we actually don't know, so we can't go that far.
But what I will say is that first footage is paramount, because when everyone thinks of a dance anime, obviously the most important part is the dance and the audio portion of it. So if you kind of fuck that up from the get-go or kind of have a bad showing, everyone is just going to dismiss it, whether it is justified or not. So
Yeah, it's hard that like the majority of like dance focused anime are usually like idol shows, or occasionally you get, Dance Dance Dancer and Medalist, right? It's very specific stuff. And what's actually kind of interesting is the fact that like it took this long to have like a dance anime. One that is I mean, like, of course there must be some variation of it in the past, but this one's
there's ballroom dancing.
That too. Yeah, but that one's a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to the ballroom. But okay, the issue that I also have is that we have no footage, and this is 2025 and we are almost
we're a quarter of the way
through.
Which means it's definitely not going to be coming out in summer.
So it means it is, if it doesn't get delayed, which I think is possible, it never say never, it will be in the fall, which is going up against, at this point, like One Punch Man season 3 and shit like that.
Yeah, but I mean they're vastly different genres, right?
True.
So I wouldn't say that there was competition between watching One Punch Man and watching Wandance.
And the fall is always stacked. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So that is true. But
I mean, we're expecting a lot. Like Yujo Senki 2, My Dress Up Darling season 2, another season. Well, actually, those ones are to be expected coming out in 2025. Then you also have third season of Spy Family, and then going into winter 2026. Then you'll have Frieren, you'll have Hell's Paradise.
Isn't Dan also?
Yeah, I mean, like To Your Eternity is coming back as well. You have the final season of no, that one's a little bit easier, a little bit sooner. Final season of My Hero Academia. Dungeon Meshi is going to be coming out too. It's going to be a lot of stuff. So I understand where you're coming from in terms of like it might be buried under like the heavy hitters.
Yeah.
As expected whenever you have like big sequels coming out for massive shows. But I think that if you are like interested in Wandance, it's like regardless of those things coming out, you would still want to check it out. I think it's a good like refresher, right?
Yeah.
From people slaying demons or monsters on this paradise island, or watching a Hitler lights going around and doing her shit.
Yeah. Okay.
Just see people dance and break out of their shell. I'm excited to see how this will turn out. Again, because I am not a dancer. I've tried it before.
I'm hella not a dancer either, by the way.
I've danced on stage before, and it was not fun. So I'm not going to critique them from that perspective.
No, but you can relate, right?
Not really. I only did it once in my life. But I at least, I am looking forward to that part and seeing how the animation sequences are going to go down for the dancing. So those are our thoughts. Not lukewarm. We're definitely a bit positive on it, just because the manga. What's good about the manga as well is that it's very straightforward.
Yeah,
there's not a whole lot of plot divergence.
No.
It's not like, oh, there is going to be like a competitor. Oh, it's like, oh, I stutter way more than you, and I'm already a way better dancer than you. I think there doesn't seem to be
melodrama. Right?
There's no rivalry at this stage.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we're only in volume 1, but I think it's at least a good. It's a good template to at least go from, where you think it's not going to be that melodramatic.
Yeah.
In terms of the melodramatic, it might just be, sort of like the pitfalls of personal development and stuff like that. Like, having low confidence and trying to see what you can do to bring yourself back up, or if you ever think you could bring yourself back up. I think those would be like the main heavy hitters.
Right.
But even then, it's like, I don't think it's going to be that serious.
I mean, I'm not necessarily spoiling the plot of it all, but I also feel that there is no melodrama here, because I'll take an example. Our main male character is really tall. And when you are really tall, you are pretty good at a particular sport in general. And he has a friend who also plays that sport. And he was just kind of like, oh, you're into this? All right, cool. Or like, oh, you sure you don't want to join the basketball team? All right. I mean, sure. I mean, just try. Come whenever you want.
Ooh, look at you. Oh, you're talking to that girl? You dating? No. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Good.
Cool. All right. Cool.
Yep.
See you at lunch. That's it.
That's it. Exactly. So it's like,
no bullshit, no drama. That's good. It's not a toxic show.
No, it is not.
Absolutely not. I think that actually is a pretty good segue into our next contender for a SAP adaptation. So, The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity. An ongoing manga series of the same name, written and illustrated by Saka Mikami, originally published in English by Kadensha's magazine pocket manga website and app. It was digitally published in English by Kadensha USA, with 5 volumes released. There will be the 5th one came out back in February, and the next one, the 6th one, will actually be coming out on April 1st.
It's not a joke. It is coming out on April 1st.
2 weeks from this recording.
Yep.
A bunch of awards and nominations. Was nominated as part of the 2022 Next Manga Awards. It came 6th out of 50 nominees. It's also nominated for the Tsutaya Comic Awards and came out 2nd. Nationwide Bookstore Employees Recommend Comics of 2023 came out 7th. Yada yada yada.
Nomination Kodansha Award.
It's got a lot of pretty good reviews.
And why, you ask? Because it has a raw mouse score of 8.81, rank 40, and popularity 164.
It is immensely popular, and the only thing you can do when you have a romance comedy come out, you gotta have one of the best in the business adapting it, and that's Cloverworks. The only other one that I think would have made sense would be KyoAni.
Yes.
I mean, either one of them, great. 2025 is the projected premiere date, and there is a trailer for it. It's a pretty simple one. I think it's like a 50-second PV.
It looks fucking gorgeous.
It looks gorgeous. But that's to be expected with Cloverworks. That's why, like, when I say, like, oh, you got to take things with a grain of salt depending on who's making it. Like, Madhouse with Wandance, you know it's going to be fine. Cloverworks, you know it's going to look pretty. That being said, the flowers they have on the side of the school.
Oh God! Thank God you said that. Oh my God!
They looked really, really, really pretty.
Yeah,
and it makes sense. I mean, flower is legitimately in the title of this series. So let me paint the scene here. 2 schools side by side: Chidori Public High School and Kikyo Private Academy Girls High School. 2 things of note: one is a public school, one is a private school. One is pretty much mostly boys, and the other one is a full-on girls' school. Very, very contrasting reputations. Chidori High essentially is just a bunch of delinquents and degenerate boys from the lower class, like, social system.
And by delinquents, we don't mean like they are roughhouseian and they like cause crime.
No, they're just kind of like, you know, they play on the playground with the soccer ball, kick too hard, break a glass window, and then run away.
Yeah,
or like, you know, they kick cans on the street and accidentally hit somebody and run away.
Or their grades are just not great.
Yeah, it's not like Buchigiri where like they're going around and fighting. Is it Buchigiri or
yes,
Buchigire?
It is. Buchigiri.
Okay, good. All right, thank you for backing me up there. Whereas Kikyo is prestigious. You know, only the most noble and honorable girls across Japan can attend this school, and there is a weird rivalry between these 2 schools.
I wouldn't call it rivalry. I just call it.
The reason why it's called a rivalry is just because there is no respect from Kikyo towards Chidori. It is legitimately the higher rungs of noble society looking down at a bunch of peasants who just are not like worth their time, worth the oxygen they share.
And I mean that literally, because very, very early on, I think like the first like couple of pages, so this is not really a spoiler, one of the girls drops a handkerchief.
It's like the 4th page, yeah.
Yes, the 4th page. The girl drops a handkerchief, and then one of like the male main character's friends picks it up and it's like, oh, here, give it to you, which is like the most normal thing ever.
Yeah, you dropped this.
And then she's like, no, you can throw it away. It's been sullied. It's been dirtied. And I'm just like, bruh.
Yeah, now that's toxic as shit.
Yeah. So the boys hate the girls' school as well because of the treatment.
Yeah. So it's definitely a bilateral relationship in terms of the hatred, but it's definitely one side that's instigating it more, whereas the other side, it's just because of the fact that their reputation precedes them. So we mainly focus on 2 main characters, one which is Rintaro Sumigi, a Chidori Public High School boy. He essentially is known to be one of the more terrifying and scary students of the school, in the fact that anytime he turns around and pulls a face, they run away. People just do not want to engage. They think they're going to lose their lives, lose their shit, and they just like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just going to back up. Even like the toughest of bullies from his school, which is the quote-unquote delinquent school, just be like, hey, don't mess with this guy.
But he's actually a very softy, timid person that is very self-reflecting, very humble, and he just, you know, it's kind of that the trope, the Japanese trope of like they turn around and then see you towering over them, and you are about to say, "Oh, I apologize," but then you can't even finish your sentence because they ran away.
Yeah, like because by the 10th or 11th page, it turns out that Rintaro is a pâtissier. He's a baker. Well, not baker by trade, but baker by family relationships. His family runs a bakery in the town, and he essentially helps out his mom. So one day after school, he's back at his part-time job / hey, I'm just doing this because I'm the son. I got no say in this whatsoever. And he spots a young girl sitting on her own with many, many empty plates. Goes over and says, just says, hey. And immediately she gets startled, screams, and just runs out of the bakery.
Right. And then an incident kind of ensues, and then everything seems to be going okay, and everything is fine until the next day.
Yeah, the reason why like she was so scared off is because she thought that she was being judged for having so many empty plates, because who would eat a normal amount of cake? And he's just like, I guess you really like cake. Haha.
Right. So, obviously, because we mentioned the two schools, guess where the girl goes to school?
She goes right next door to Kikyo Private Academy Girls High School.
So, I think that pretty much, and then obviously, if you know about the genre of this manga, it is romance. So, I think that pretty much sums up, without going really into character development or details, the situation and the premise, right?
I think when you look at it from a really granular level, it sounds as
generic as it comes.
Tall, outwardly terrifying male student, short, timid, and adorable female student. Opposites attract. They essentially get off on the wrong foot, but it turns out it's a massive misunderstanding, and then they clear it out. But here's the best part of why people think this is such a good manga series.
Are you also in that camp?
I'm getting there,
okay.
But I will say this. There's no bullshit. There's no further misunderstandings. It's more just the fact that these two are from completely different world, and they're trying to come together. There's, at least at this stage, I only read one volume.
I read two.
It does not seem like there is any complex love triangle, love polys.
No.
There is no sort of like toxicity in the terms of like, oh, you date this person, you're going to ruin your life. It's more just like, stay away from the reputation. It's more just like, it's very surface level, like, perspectives of how bad a school's reputation is, and because of that, the opposite school views them to be like uppity and tighty whitey and all that. So it doesn't come across as something where like you're sitting there wondering, why am I dealing with another dense MC? Why am I dealing with another sort of like situation where like clearly there is romantic feelings between the two, but like they're not showing it? Of course, remember that these are meant to be portrayals of high school students, so there is going to be a level of timidness between the two, because you can't just go straight into, being all lovey-dovey and all that. That rarely ever happens, unless of course you're talking about some series like After the Rain, but one's a high school student, the other one is not. That's an age gap romance.
So the thing that I think is really poignant about Fragrant Flower That Blooms with Dignity is how simple, like when we first saw the score without knowing the plot, it is crazy. All right.
Yeah, I didn't know how fucking highly rated it was.
That's just crazy.
Yeah,
like rank 40, 8.81. It's unheard of. I mean, obviously it's heard of, but it's just, you don't see that every day, obviously. So when we're going in, I'm trying to like figure out as I was reading the first volume and then eventually the second volume, why is there an appeal?
So here's an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I just looked up the romance manga tab on my anime list, and then I sorted it by score.
Yep.
It is the 5th highest romance manga.
Right.
At least it has the romance tag on it.
Mm-hmm.
It falls behind Yona of the Dawn, which I think the romance is only one part.
Also,
Spice and Wolf, Kaguya-sama, Love is War.
Makes sense.
And the number 1 is the Monogatari series season 1.
Okay.
First season, which
sure.
is interesting because I feel like there's a lot of other genre tags that would be more important than the romance. But it's rated higher than Nana. Okay?
Horimiya.
It's rated higher than Rascal Does Not Dream. It's rated higher than Your Lie in April. Rated higher than I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. It's
Or a silent voice.
yeah.
Oh, actually, the silent voice is the manga, right? Yes. Yeah. Actually, there is not really a romance, kind of. Anyways, the point that I was trying...
A Sign of Affection.
Sign of Affection, thank you. The thing that I wanted to mention is, so what makes this, rather than a good manga, a good story, into a great story? And I don't really know how to explain it other than it just feels very real.
What it does, and like this is going to be like the most cop-out answer. It does enough. It doesn't try to do more than it needs to. It sets out a very simple situation of two opposites are attracted to each other, set in very different worlds. It's as Romeo and Juliet as can be, but you don't have poisons and family drama and misunderstandings.
At least
causing
not
death,
yet, right?
I mean, again, I'm only one volume in. I don't know how far you are.
The second volume does get a little bit more dramatic, but there is no like love polygon or triangle yet, or that kind of thing.
Good. Because that shit. Okay, love polys and love triangles are obviously mainstays within like romance dramas, but look,
it's hard to pull off, right?
It's it either becomes frustrating when you're reading it,
or it becomes blue box.
Yeah. Well, but Blue Box does it so well.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm saying you don't get a lot of blue boxes. You get a lot of the opposite. So I think this is more obviously on the lines of blue box in the sense that
it did give me that kind of vibe.
Yeah,
it did.
like you know how the premise of blue box is just
actually,
a bunch of.
Interestingly enough, I felt that like Wandance was like Blue Box without the drama, without the love. It was just two people learning to do sports and just enjoy it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I could see that, yeah. Especially because their basketball is involved in that, too.
And at the moment, there is no, like, sort of, like, romance involved in Wandance so far. Which I'm glad it's doing that.
I think the romance is with the dance.
Yes, which I'm very, very happy with. They started, like, making it where, like, the two of Rakubo,
Wanda?
Yeah, Rakubo, I think his name is, and Wanda start falling in love with each other. That's when I'll be like, okay, fine, I'm tapping out. Like this is straying away from why I wanted to read it in the first place. This, on the other hand, like you want to see these two characters get together, and quite early on, they actually start meeting up fairly often. They're sharing cakes at the bakery that Rintaro works at. He's very clearly like trying to. Well, it's actually one of the plot points where he needs to get his grades up because circumstances. So
right.
He has, okay, fine. I'll fucking go to the library and study. Sees her there, runs off because it's like, I can't be seen in public with her. It's going to ruin her reputation. And he's very self-aware of that. It's very like obvious that like this kid knows that despite him trying to be a good person, that his outwardly reputation is always going to precede him. But that's not how, that's not how she sees it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I like about Fragrant Flower That Blooms with Dignity is everyone is a good person. And when I mean by good person, I don't mean like you're lawful good or like, you abide by rules and you are like a saint like on the outside.
You're just good-hearted. You can spot someone in need of help. You can spot a situation where a little charity from yourself goes a long way.
And it really does.
And you're not doing it for like selfish reasons. You're not doing it for recognition. You're not doing it so that people know who you are. It's more just the fact that it at this moment is the right thing to do.
Yeah, and like, well, what's the male character's name? I keep forgetting. Rintaro. His friends are legit his friends, and they're like worried for him or like concerned, just like normal good friends would be. Same thing with the other side as well. You get girls who are genuinely caring for the male-female character because of the circumstances that they're in, and I think it is just a really nice breath of fresh air, basically.
Yeah, I'm glad that this is sort of coming out. How good it's going to be,
I don't know. That's the problem. That's my issue. I think it's a I don't know. Do you think it's 8.81 material?
We've only read one volume, right?
I read two, but I kind of
we're barely scratching the surface. I mean, how many volumes are out? I think it's like 5 or 6.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, the 6th one's coming out, right?
April 1st.
Yeah. So at the moment, like it's don't want to be a downer, but like, how is this rated so high?
Yeah.
Like, it's good, it's very good, but like 5th all time on my anime list as best romance, even though the ones that are preceding it like shouldn't be there, like fucking Monogatari.
So okay, so let me just Will and I let's just get this out of the way. It is done by Cloverworks, 2025, probably in the fall.
It's gonna look fantastic,
and it looks
you absolutely know it's gonna look fantastic with Cloverworks. Yes, they have kind of dropped the ball every now and then, but like this is
not Tokyo 21st Ward.
This
okay?
this is their wheelhouse. Like, you know it's gonna look great.
So then let's okay, we're done with that. Basically, literally, that's all we have to say about that portion. I think the issue then comes because it's so slow. It's a slow burn. Even though I would say,
I mean, you had the same thing about Sign of Affection as well, which I was also like really confused. But then like afterwards, I was like, you know what, you make a good point. But like, romance stuff is bound to be a bit on the slow side unless you make it melodramatic, and this doesn't seem like one of those kinds of shows.
Yeah, so I just don't know how it will turn out, other than to say I will keep my eyes on it for sure.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's as straightforward as Sign of Affection as well. It's just the circumstances are different. It's just that Sign of Affection, she's
an university.
She's mute.
Yeah.
Is she mute or is she deaf?
She's deaf.
Yeah. So there you go. But again, it's two people wanting to know more about each other. Same way in this. The circumstance is that they are of two quote unquote different social rungs.
But
But other than that, like, they're legitimately very vested and interested to learn more about each other. So it's very straightforward. There's no like weird sort of psychological melodrama, like for example, like Golden Time, right? Golden Time was again another one of those very much like there's clearly a romance between two characters, but for some fucking reason, one person is like unalive,
spirit time travel kind of thing.
It was really weird, but it was a good series. But like that's where like the pacing helps because you have some weird shit going on that you distract yourself from the romance. Whereas this is like front and center. Mm-hmm. You can't shy away from it. So
that's all the manga talks about, literally. Yes.
Yeah. But the fact that there is enough people to put this thing up in the top 200 of popularity on my anime list for manga, top 50, it's the 40th one, 5th best for romance. It must be doing something right.
Yeah. So again, what I'm about to say is not necessarily a spoiler because Will and I legitimately don't know. Do you think they'll get together?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
By like the first season?
So that's where like I'm kind of conflicted whether this is going to be like they get together very early on and they're just navigating their relationship where people are judging them because one's a quote unquote delinquent,
right,
and the other one is too high class and too good to be with this person, too saintly and pure.
Yeah, or is it like literally the last minute of the last episode is like they hold hands and then that's it, you know?
Yeah. Or, I mean, like, well, here's the thing. They've been sharing cakes. They've been doing study sessions together. They're not that far off from holding hands.
No,
it's study session is the first base, right?
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
holding hands is the end goal.
Yeah.
So,
I see.
So next they got to go to the movies.
Oh, you degenerate!
Right. After that, they got to go and share coffee together, share a drink, and then they have to sit by the riverside and stare at the stars.
They do share coffee. I hate to say that.
Right?
I spoil it, but they do share coffee already.
So they're getting there. You know what's going to happen. How fast it happens is very much up in the air. Right?
Yeah.
And especially with only 5 confirmed volumes, with the 6th one coming out next month, there's who knows how long the story will go for. That's the thing I'm also thinking about here. Whereas, which is, I don't want this thing to run for too long. This romance is essentially like, especially if it's very clear cut that these two characters are going to get together and you're not introducing too many external forces to keep them away outside of the fact that it's the reputation side, you don't want to overstay your welcome. I think that this is something that will at most run for 15 to 20 volumes. Even then, that seems very long.
Yeah, that does.
Right?
But who knows? Maybe.
I mean, it's already a third of the way there, right?
Yeah. To be fair, yeah. And there's so much that you can probably do with any sort of a romance relationship. What I will say at the end of the day is it is an extremely nice manga to read. Is it as good as an 8.81? Maybe I have to read more to see. All I can say is it is really good, but I don't know if it's great. And there must be something there that Will and I have not encountered yet that propels it to that level.
Without being like derogatory in any way whatsoever, it is plain and simple, which is the best compliment I can give a romance property.
Yeah.
It has no bullshit, no filler, no nothing that would be able to like detract from the romance feeling of this series.
You know what I would say? I would say imagine the vibe of Skip and Loafer, but then done in the romance like Blue Box. And then you will basically in a very like reductive way you get Fragrant Flower.
Yeah, speaking of which, I'm very excited for the second season of Skip and Loafer.
It's going to be great.
I'm really looking forward to that. That's something I can watch with my wife. Absolutely. Yeah. She fucking loves it.
So I don't think this anime is really in any sort of danger or any sort of, oh no, this might not be good.
This is absolutely like, we always do this where it's like our safest bet of this ASAP, and this is it. You've got a great manga property with a very simple story done by one of the best in the business, Cloverworks, backed by Aniplex because the fact that they own Cloverworks. Right. So you know that they're going to be able to get the best talent for this, whether it's for voice acting, whether it's for music, whether it's for directing.
We already saw the trailer. Yeah. So we, according to that footage, we can at least surmise something. It's great.
Yeah, 50 seconds is enough for you to at least see this is going to be a beautiful show. As expected from Cloverworks. So there is absolutely no problem in terms of this getting a good score. Will it be the 8.81? I think you have to rein in your horses there. Because again, right? Like, I don't know if this was an 8.81 from the get-go, or if it was like by the third or fourth or even fifth volume that it became this good. From what I've read, and probably from what you've read as well, this is going to be a slow burn.
Yeah.
This is going to take its time to fester and ferment and turn into something very beautiful.
I just think it is definitely, from an anime mouse score perspective, it will 100% going to be above an 8. It's just undoubtedly in my mind. But it would be interesting to see how far it goes.
Right. We've taken some time to go over the soft and fluffy and chill expectations of this ASAP. We're going to take a quick break and pull a complete 180 and go into some real stupid shit. Catch you all after the break.
See ya. So Will and I are now back on the second half of the Good Anime Palette Podcast, episode 102. We went over probably one of the highest ranked romance series of all time, and also talked about dancing and feeling the emotions that well up within you when you hear music. But right now, the music has stopped, because let's talk about cocks.
So, Rooster Fighter, the cock of the walk, is all the talk about this section of ASAP. It is a ongoing web manga series of the same name, written and illustrated by Shu Sakuratani, originally published in Japanese on Heroes Inc.'s Comiplex manga website back in December 2020. The English is produced and published in English by Viz Media, and since its premiere, Rooster Fighter is extremely, extremely popular abroad. So particularly in Spanish-speaking countries like Mexico, Spain, Argentina, it's already received more than 12 official translations for different countries and regions. The manga score is a 7.42, popularity 1147. So it's decent scores, decent popularity. But I think it's just the fact that, like, despite it being so popular in the Western world, as well as like in not just English speaking but also Spanish speaking, I just don't think enough people know about it. At least we know that it will be coming out sometime this year or perhaps next year. It's going to be produced by Zanzigen, who's handling the animation, and the production side will be done by Sola Entertainment. We do have a couple of staff staff members who will be working on this series. The director is Daisuke Suzuki, who's worked on D4DJ All Mix and Double Mix. The series composition and scriptwriter will be Hiroshi Seko, who's done scripts for JJK Season 1, a bunch of essentially everything before the final season of Attack on Titan, as well as Vinland Saga. He did the story composition of the same series, along with Mob Psycho 100 Season 1, and frequently works with MAPPA and with Studio. The producer, this is the good one, Joseph Chu, who helped to produce Tower of God Season 1, as well along with the Animatrix.
And then the last sentence?
Adult Swim's involved. They're going to be licensing it for the U.S. And you just know this is going to be one of those late-night Toonami Adult Swim things that's like, I'm going to watch anime and it's like 3 in the morning. Put some cock on the TV.
Dude.
Cockfighter right now.
When I saw that sentence, licensed in the U.S. by Adult Swim, I was smiling.
It was also just fun, too, that like the way that Viz Media like published it and also helps to promote it is legitimately calling it a cock. Like... They know what this is. They're not beating around the bush. Okay,
so
I don't want to. I don't want to keep using the words cock and beating around the bush in the same sentence again. So I'm going to stop doing it.
Sure.
So
Rooster Fighter.
Let's give a plot synopsis on what Rooster Fighter is. So
there's a rooster.
3 years ago, mutant demons started appearing in Japan. Some are harmless and kind of cool. Some are annoying. Some just, are complete, like, utter destructive across the city of the country of Japan. And most of these are demons that spawn from unrelenting trauma, stress, and pain. In the sense, it's funny. Like, I will spoil a few of these because it's in the first volume, and you're going to see them anyway.
And it doesn't detract.
You have demons that become you have humans that become demons because they have gambling debt. You have ones which is the funniest one for me was like it was a demon that she was like a mistress, and it's like, I can't believe he hasn't left his wife yet. What the fuck is he doing? And then spawns into a monster and just starts destroying things. It's like, wow, like that's your level of rage. Jesus Christ. Like, you knew full on that you've been committing adultery. You've been helping someone commit adultery, and you're the one that's feeling stressed out. Like, you
get some therapy, please.
So what do we do about these mutants, these demons? Well, the army's no good, right? They're not going to be able to destroy these demons.
Yeah.
No.
There's no kaiju number 8,
There is no kaiju, but there is a keiji.
Right.
A lone rooster, fresh off of fucking his wife or girlfriend. Or something.
Someone.
Decides to, you know what? I'm done fucking you. I gotta go. A rooster never stays in its nest all day. I can't be cooped up all day long. I gotta go out. Starts wandering around and just happens to come across these mutant demons and starts killing them. His main goal, his ultimate goal in life, is to find the white demon who was responsible for killing his sister, and he wants to avenge her death. Plain and simple.
Did we also mention that he's a rooster? Because that's kind of a thing.
Cock-a-doodle-doo. That's legit. This is the mantra. This is cock-a-doodle-doo.
I think this manga is really dumb in like a good way. And unfortunately, this is my ASAP 9 pick for flop of the adaptation of a flop. This is my guess. This is just my
Are you doing that because every ASAP has to have a flop?
No.
Or are you doing it because this one is, out of the ones we've mentioned, this one's the most likely to not hit? Because
how do you think they can get it right? It's so hard. The promotion is great because they are in sync with the vibe, the tone of the manga.
You've seen the trailer, right?
It's good.
It looks fine.
Okay, yeah.
What else do you expect? It's a rooster.
Yeah, I know.
That cock-a-doodle-doos and kills demons.
I just feel like this is not going to hold legs.
Listen, you don't understand how simple the hive mind is, all right?
Okay.
People want destruction.
Oh, yeah,
and we've seen enough of humans doing it.
Right.
So let's bring a cock into this fight.
And
that's simply it.
And turtles.
why else do you think that Adult Swim is getting involved, right? Like,
Yeah.
This is going to hit for not for the people that you think it's going to hit for. This is essentially late night degenerate. I want to see some real dumb shit. And that's why I think it will succeed. Now, will it go beyond one season? No, I absolutely do not think it will be more than one season. And I think that's where I think your flop, I will agree with you in the sense that it will not be as successful as seeing a massive continuation of it. Because, look, it's kind of following the same hallmarks of One Punch Man, right? One Punch Man started off as like a web manga and then became an actual manga and then became, a anime production, and now it's running into its third season despite it having been on hiatus from the anime production side for like close to 8-10 years, right? I think it first came out 2015, and then it's like barely anything outside of after its second season, right? Because of what JC Staff did, even though I think it was very unwarranted, the amount of hate they got. So with this, I wouldn't be so harsh as to say it is a flop, but I will say that in comparison to the three, well, that's where, at least in comparison to Wondance and to
Fragrant Flower,
the Dignity one, this one is less likely to get a follow-up season. I would also say that Wandance probably wouldn't get is likely to not get a follow-up season.
Yeah, I also agree with that.
Right?
But when I said I think it will be a flop of an adaptation, I didn't say that it wouldn't be a successful anime. I just think that it will do its job. The manga sales will go through the roof because everyone will check out the manga, and they should. And then it's just gonna not get a second season, as you said, and as we all predicted. Everyone's gonna predict that, and I think it will do its job. I think it will be good. I think it's great that they got an anime. I think then because let's just not beat around the bush, all right? The manga is as dumb as it gets, and as wacky as it gets. There is no higher being, higher kind of philosophy. It's just crazy, dumb action and stupidness and like macho manliness, but in in Full Metal Alchemist when the two buff guys, like the butcher guy and the other alchemist guy, like they wrestle and then they shook hands and then they're like, I acknowledge you.
Yeah.
That's how Rooster Fighter is going to be.
At the same time, though, right? Like, this prediction can go completely tits up. There is every possibility that this thing is like so popular that they just have to make another season.
Yeah,
and at its current rate right now, I mean, like they're expecting to get more English translations soon, right? Currently there are 7, and then the 8th and 9th ones came out August 5th, 2024, and January 6th, 2025, at least the Japanese ones. So we'll be expecting them to be made into English at some point, probably in, I don't know, maybe 4 months, 5 months.
And I want to emphasize sort of the last point that we made where it was really popular in like 12 countries and regions, and particularly in Spanish-speaking countries. Like, I'm not, obviously, I don't really know why that there is that kind of attachment to Spanish-speaking countries. But what I can at least say is that clearly outside of Japan, they feel a certain way, and probably inside of Japan, they feel a certain way. So I think it will do well. I just don't think the anime will be as awesome as the manga.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some truth to that, in that in order to be able to capture that insanity, like, there has to be some sort of staying power, and I don't know if it will have that. Like, beyond the first season, like, where it's essentially, and I don't want to make this comparison, but I have to, it's basically One Punch Man, but with a rooster. Because both of them are parodies of the action comedy series that come out on both manga and anime form, right? You just have this
absurd.
You have One Punch Man, who legitimately is just way too powerful, but doesn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this rooster who is kind of like not necessarily a polar opposite, because like you don't see One Punch Man just going around fucking people and being like, I gotta go move on. What he wants to do is just find discount groceries, do push-ups, and occasionally punch a monster because it's in his way, right? Rooster Fighter is actually avenging something, but I don't know if we will be able to see that on the screen. I think that we will definitely see the makings of Rooster Fighter, at least from the first season, maybe a second season. It really just comes down to sales. If it does well to actually boost the amount of manga that come out, then there is obviously an incentive to continue the series. Now, whether or not it does well, we'll have to see when the anime comes out. It's just one of those where like you can kind of see why this thing would be popular.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not it's good or not is a different thing.
I just don't think it has legs, unfortunately.
I mean, roosters do have legs.
Yeah, I know
about?
2 of them, but
They have cloacas as well.
Okay, thank you.
Which is why, like, the first part when they're fucking is a little bit weird because I mean they just pop their seed and then just leave. That's it.
Right.
That's essentially what a rooster's doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not going against you in the sense that like I think it's gonna be successful. I kind of see where you're coming from here. I just think you gotta let it cook. I think you gotta see like how the action plays out. The trailer looked good enough for me to be convinced that this thing is going to at least get some eyes when it first releases.
Okay, so you think that it will have a chance of having staying power?
I think it's because I want to think of it as simply as possible in the sense that it's a fun anime, well, to be anime. It's a fun manga series that just doesn't take itself seriously.
Which is true.
And therefore, like, it might just be enough for people to be like, hey, like, this doesn't seem like something where I need to invest a whole lot of emotional time into it. I can just be entertained on a weekly basis or just wait until it all comes out and then just binge it in one go. It doesn't seem like something that is too risky, right? And that's the thing. I think it's a very simple premise. It's just you're replacing an overpowered male or female fighter with a fucking chicken,
right?
And so therefore, like there is every possibility that this thing will do well. Now, how you define well is very much up to you, right? Whether it means, multiple seasons of it, whether it means that like sales are through the roof, it goes up 2-fold, 5-fold, 10-fold, whatever. I will say this, I would not be surprised if it does get a second season.
Okay.
But I am not betting on it.
Right. I personally feel that it's one of those shows or one of those mangas where the shtick and the hook is really good, but I don't know if everybody else
I
will stay for the marathon.
Yeah, exactly. Whether or not it's like, okay, I've had my fix, I'm going to move on from it, right?
And I feel like there's at least when I read it, there's a high chance of that.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like that's not too dissimilar from like One Punch Man, right? But since after the first season, it's just you're seeing him being able to punch more stuff and beat more stuff, and then when the second season came out and it turned out to be very dialogue heavy, people were like, whoa. I'm not in for this anymore. I'm going to leave. Thank you, GC staff, for ruining this for me.
Right. And then the third season, let's see how that goes. But I honestly feel that that's exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Like, hey, One Punch Man, the first season is godlike. And maybe the first season of this is godlike. But then it's, or maybe like the first episode, let's say. And then you'll be like, oh, wow, what is this? This can only be done in anime. And then by like episode 4, you're just like, oh, okay. And then maybe you have checked out.
Yeah, no, and that's why like I agree in terms of it like having this staying power. It's not very likely because of the fact that once you've seen it, you've kind of seen it all already. Like, how many times does Reiji have to, Keiji have to Kowloon do and beat all his monsters, and like how long do we have to wait until he actually gets up to avenging his sister? Like, are we going to be then seeing like a power level system? Because it doesn't seem like there's going to be much of a power level.
Well, at the end of the first volume, they kind of start to show more characters that probably are going to stay for the longer term.
Yep.
But again, Will and I have not read past that point.
I mean, they did list that character as a main character, so that means that you're going to see some
party members,
character dynamics,
right? But I feel like this is just going to be like a 6.8 show.
7, flat 7. I'd say it does enough to entertain and to be in like the good side of things. Not to say that 6.8 is good, bad. It's fine. It's decent. But I do think that it would probably be a while before we would even see news of a second season. Who knows? I mean, it could legitimately be doing so well during the season that, like, by the final episode, find more about KG and Rooster Fighter in season 2 to be released 2026 and beyond.
Yeah. Don't be a dick. Be a cock.
Yeah. Because cocks fight well, man.
Yeah. So we now get into probably not probably is our last pick for ASAP 9, but probably we're going to spend the most amount of time on for this episode. It is none other than a show and a manga that takes place in Hong Kong, or kind of. It is called Kowloon Generic Romance. It's based on the ongoing manga series of the same name, written and illustrated by Jun Mayuzuki. So here's the thing. She is really well known for another series called After the Rain.
Really good.
So you have heard me, praise that to high heavens, and I think, was it Wit Studio, Brainspace, who did the anime?
I don't remember, but I mean, I watched it for one of our closet cleanups.
It was like a pretty well-known studio, or Studio Bones. I forgot. I keep remembering. So it was originally published in Japanese by
Wit Studio.
Oh, Wit Studio, yeah. By Weekly Young Magazine, published in English by Yen Press. Mal score 7.72, rank 1673, popularity 794, which is pretty decent with 24,000 members. This has a premiere date for spring 2025, produced by Arvo Animation. So you might know them as like the We Never Learn, the Bakuben people, as well as, I guess, the vampire astronaut one. I forgot the name, Irina, and also Monster Girl Doctor in 2020. And Kowloon Generic Romance has to be explained with a lot of context behind it.
Yeah. And excuse me. This is going to take a while simply because of the fact that it's set in the Kowloon walled city, a historic slum city that, whether or not you've been in Hong Kong, you would know about it, especially when people talk about like how crammed Hong Kong living situations are, and then they show what the walled city used to look like. They're like, whoa, this is a slum on top of a slum on top of a slum. So to give context to what Kowloon Generic Romance is, this is set in the distant future. It doesn't really actually tell you what date it is. You can just tell it's not set in contemporary times or set in like, because, well, one, the Kowloon Walled City does not exist anymore. It was torn down in 1993. Nor was it set in the time when the Kowloon Walled City existed, because they had email.
Yeah.
So this is going to be something that happens in the future. So this walled city existed as kind of like a refuge for either longtime citizens of Hong Kong, people who had just come in as refugees from Vietnam, from Thailand, from northern China, and whatnot. It follows the story of a realtor named Reiko Kujirai, who essentially just wants to experience new things. In contrast, her coworker Hajime Kudo just is a very stubborn man. Just does not seem to want to let go of the past and wants to keep things the way they are, and is always frustrated to see any sign of modernity that's kind of creeping past the walls of the city and bleeding into what he feels is the romance of Kowloon, the romance of Hong Kong.
Yeah, and to the point where he has to have the same dumplings at the same store all the time, or if not, like, something is wrong with his day, like he just feels off. So he is very much stuck in the past, while Reiko is kind of looking for the future. So there's that kind of dichotomy there. But to explain, and then obviously when you hear a romance in the name.
We've gone past sort of like setting the tone in terms of like the location and all that. It's an office romance, kind of. So through sort of like little bickerings and pranks and just making fun of each other, it turns out, of course, that Reiko Kujirai has feelings towards Kudo. Whether or not it's fully romantic or not, it gets fully explored later on, and then it turns out, yes, this woman is completely in love with Kudo, and the reason why she wants to take him out and go to restaurants and explore new areas because she wants him to experience new things alongside with her. But whenever they do their smoke breaks on the rooftop of their office, they always look up at the stars or look up at the sky, and Hajime Ikuto just looks at her and tells her, there's a certain romance to the city. There's a certain romance to being here in the moment. And one day, a little prank kind of goes the wrong way, and Hajime makes an advance towards Reiko. But once he realizes what's happening, he apologizes and acts like nothing's happened at all. So Reiko's kind of confused. Why did he, make a move on me? Why did he do this? Like, I have feelings for him, and I should feel great, but at the same time, like, she's not reciprocating anything beyond that. So she starts to try to learn more about like what's going on. Why is he so close yet so distant to me? And as things start becoming more and more clear to her, once she starts picking up on more clues, she starts finding out that things aren't the way they're supposed to, or at least not what they seem. What she sees is not necessarily the truth. What she sees is not necessarily reality. Because one day when she goes to a restaurant goes to a coffee shop actually with Kudo, and then goes back to there on her own, the coffee shop owner says, "Hey, welcome back. It's good to see you here again." It's like, "Oh, I've only been here that one time." No. You've been here multiple times. And shows her a photo of their engagement, or at least like a photo of them together that he took. And when she sees the photo, all of a sudden her world falls apart. And she is then transported into the same coffee shop, but the walls are torn down. Everything is in disarray. The windows are smashed in. And she's just sitting there all alone, realizing that she is not who she thinks she is. In fact, she doesn't even know who she is because she has no memories beyond the last 6 months of basically what's happened in the story. The first chapter, all the way leading up to the end of the volume, is all that she remembers, all that she knows. And then once beyond that, she has no clue who she is and what's happening.
Oh, did we also mention that there is a science fiction tag attached to Kowloon generic romance? And very, very early on, not even a spoiler, they look up at the sky in like the first chapter or the second chapter, and there is an octahedron, which is like a D8 if for those nerds out there with Dungeons and Dragons. It's like a D8 dice shape that's just floating in the air. What the fuck? That is Kowloon generic romance.
Yep. So to properly explain what this thing is, I mean, the simple answer is read the manga or wait a couple weeks and watch the anime because it's coming out very, very soon. April, I would assume either the first or second week of April. So you shouldn't be waiting more than a month after this episode releases to go check out the first episode of Kowloon Generic Romance. I want to hear your thoughts first, Jason, because I have a lot I want to say about this.
So I read 5 volumes of this, and I stopped on purpose because it reached to a point where things are starting to be more of what is supposed to be, in the sense that what started out as a literal generic romance that takes place in the Kowloon walled city, hence the name, became anything but generic, and in some ways romantic as well. And it is one of those things where I would say for the majority of the first volume, you could kind of see it as like a slice of life show. And you'll be like, oh, that's kind of cool. There's that weird thing that floats, above the Kowloon walled city, but whatever. And then everything changes. And there's all these cryptic, it feels like Lost in a way that like there's all these clues, people are alluding to things and things are starting to happen where Reiko didn't notice at first, thought it was just, whatever. The city's just a city. The people are just the people. But then over time, they realize something is amiss. She realizes that things don't add up when she really thinks about it. And Kujo somehow knows more about it. Kudo, knows more about it. And I really like the story. Despite the slow burn, despite sometimes the wackiness of the storyline or like that chapter, what happens, because then it always comes back to this mysterious aura kind of that surrounds the Kowloon walled city in this setting. And it is kind of crazy how it just kind of creeps up on you and then you're just hooked.
I was pretty hooked from the beginning. And the reason why is because just reading the first chapter alone, I felt that the manga does a really good job in capturing the essence of what the Kowloon walled city was.
Yeah.
It is crammed. It is hectic. It is small yet large at the same time. And they capture it pretty well in the anime trailer as well. And that's kind of where, for me, like, I was really invested in it, because it wasn't so much that I was invested in the romance between Reiko and Kudo. It was more the fact that Kudo, it represents two different things, two different mindsets about the Kowloon walled city. You have Reiko, who is looking to the future, because they explain it in the manga as well, that the Kowloon walled city is due for destruction. It's due to be completely renovated and turned into something completely new. And Reiko is very much sort of like not necessarily looking forward to it, but is intrigued to see what the future holds. That's why she constantly wants to explore new areas of the Kowloon walled city. She wants to look at new restaurants and buy new things. You know, there is a new company that moved in next door and wants to start, trying to introduce new high-tech services into the walled city before it gets torn down. And she just wants to, learn more about what the city is, and learn more about what it is beyond the walls. Whereas you have Kudo, who is very much stuck in the past, is purely like running on nostalgia, does not want things to change. He takes the same path every day he goes to work, and whenever he gets off work, he meets the same people whenever he's skipping work or he's on his weekends playing mahjong in the courtyards. There are a few of those, actually. And, always going to the same restaurants, eating the same food, going and meeting the same people. For him, everything is perfect. Everything is balanced, and that is the romance of the walled city for him. For Reiko, the romance is seeing what holds beyond the walls. And that's why, like, for me, like, I resonated with that, because I didn't grow up in a time when the wall existed. The walled city existed. I came back to Hong Kong. No, I didn't came back. I came to Hong Kong in 1996. So it had already been torn down like for 2 years, right? It took a whole year from 1993 through to 1994 to destroy and completely rebuild everything once the walled city was taken down.
I think there was like an issue when they were taking it down. They had to do it in chunks.
Oh, of course, yeah. Because there were also, it wasn't so much the fact that like it was massive and needed to tear it down. It was just the fact that people just did not want to leave.
Yep.
The reason why people didn't want to leave is because it was a tax haven. You legitimately did not have any land tax by owning and running property, whether it is for residential or whether it's industrial or even for like services within the walled city.
And within the walled city has their own rules too. It's almost like their own country within a country.
It was amazing that like it's also like really apt as well that they made the main characters in this series real estate agents, because there were a lot of realtors in the walled city.
Yeah,
so many of them. There's just the fact that there was just so many like coming and going, wanting to set up a new business, wanting to create a new store. It was just like endless opportunity for people who wanted to come in and make something of themselves. But it was also a refuge for people who had like come in. Like, remember, this was a time when we are also experiencing a lot of incoming refugees from Southeast Asia and from China as well. So people who were wanting to leave certain regimes from China, who had left the war in Vietnam coming in. You just saw like all diasporas of people just trying to make a living and survive within the walled city. It was also, I mean, the way that they make the walled city look in the manga and hopefully in the anime, it's a purely like romantic place. The reality of it was very far from it in terms of the amount of The amount of brothels, the amount of drugs, the amount of gangs that were running certain areas of the walled city. It was chaos. Like my dad grew up in a period when he would spend time in the walled city, and he just said it was one of the darkest places that existed. But at
Both literally and metaphorically.
it was necessary.
Yeah.
And for people like longtime residents of the Kowloon walled city will tell you that like this was not just something for them to hold on to as like a home, but it was their lives were built there. And now, like even if you were to go to the Kowloon city as it is now in modern times, you will still see remnants of it. And I think what Kudo represents also represents the people that currently live and work within Kowloon city as well. In that, a lot of new businesses that set up there are now being asked to leave because of the fact that they're doing a new renovation project of the Kowloon walled city, of the Kowloon city as it stands. So a lot of longtime businesses, people who make there's a lot of Southeast Chinese immigrants have moved into the area. A lot of Thai immigrants have moved into the area. So if you want to get like Chu Chow food, you want to get Thai food, you want to get spices from Southeast Asia, you want to get textiles from different areas of Asia, it was all there. And in a couple months' time, it's not going to be there anymore. And that's what Kudo is. Kudo wants to hold on to the last remnants of what this city means to him, what he wants to maintain as like the perfect lifestyle. He does not want things to change. And that's probably why for me, like I read more about this, not to learn about the romance, but to learn more about what the city represents for them. And you could get certain clues throughout the time of like throughout the first volume of the cracks are starting to show in terms of why this character is constantly going to the same restaurants, constantly going to the same paths. Whenever there's like a change in Keijo, the female, in Reiko, the female character, Kudo doesn't like it, right? Takes off the glasses. I don't like it. Puts on new glasses. Better, but I don't like it. Oh, you used to wear earrings, right? No? I can wear them now. No, I don't like earrings. So you can kind of see like the cracks in terms of what the story really is. It's not just simple nostalgia. I think it goes beyond that. It goes beyond wanting to hold on to what is near and dear. It's also fear of things changing, fear of things no longer being recognizable for you anymore. And so it's twofold in terms of what the story represents. It's not just simply a relationship between two people, but also what the walled city itself means to those people. And that's why, like, of the 4 manga series that I read, this was my favorite one. This was the one that, and simply because of the fact that I'm from Hong Kong. Right. I was born in Canada, but my parents are from Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Hong Kong. I lived here for well over 25 years. And I used to frequent, no, I still do. I still go to the Kowloon City area a lot. And like it's one of those things. For me, like I love a good bit of nostalgia too. I like going to all these restaurants that have existed for 40, 50 years. I like going to see people who have been running businesses for centuries and just never changed. And it does make me feel sad that like in a couple months' time, maybe even a year, that all those things are going to be gone.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing that that Will kind of sort of mentioned is the nostalgia and also capturing the essence of the Kowloon walled city. And I would go even so far as to say it captures a lot of, like when there's like YouTubers that come to Hong Kong or like they talk about Hong Kong as like this mystical city that like is very. And then when I kind of...
They do that. They say it's mystical, it's the Far East, it's vibrant, and then
it's the East meets West.
And then they take the tram and go to the peak and then see everything. And it's like, okay, yeah, you're doing the tourist trap shit.
Yeah. But they really, at least the manga really captures not only the crampedness, but just the
lifestyle.
The lifestyle. And everyone is okay with it, by the way.
The essence
for the most part.
Yeah. I think, like, we have to give props to Mayuzuki, who put together this manga. Like,
she did her research. Fucking,
they made sure that they were not doing a disservice to the Kowloon books. They must have been there before. Otherwise, like, they just got a lot of source material to run with, because it looks like a perfect replica. Except for the fact that there are certain things that just don't really make sense. Well, I guess it does kind of make sense. The times when and this is just a nitpick for me.
Yeah.
Where whenever they're eating, especially whenever when Reiko goes out to eat, they go for a lot of Taiwanese food. And that's the part that kind of irks me a little bit, simply because I know it's set in the future, but I feel like they could have done more representation of like the Chu-Chao associations that are there, the Thai immigrants that have moved and made it home.
The literal melting pot.
I mean, whenever we have Songkran, right, the water festival of Thailand, it's held in Kowloon City.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a very important festival for the Thai populace that live in Hong Kong. So it would have been cool to see some more like Thai representation there, because it's literally the fabric of the history of the Kowloon City. But that's just a nitpick, just a very, very small nitpick. I mean, different Thai, right? One's Thailand, one's Taiwan. So
I think the show, first of all, when I saw the trailer, the show actually looks really sharp and really pretty. It's not like Cloverworks or, Mappa or Madhouse.
Comparing apples to oranges, right?
Exactly, right? But it looks in a way that it is exactly what it should look like in my expectations.
Yeah. I think, of course, like, how it looks and how it's represented is obviously important, but I also feel like it's not the main thing you should be looking at. I think that the main thing, of course, is the story. How is this sci-fi mystery romance going to unfold? Now, as Jason mentioned, there is a lot of sort of like dead air. There is a lot of like slow burn, as expected with any romance.
A lot of slow burn in this one.
For me, like I think it was just the fact that I was just encapsulated in the world of this future Kowloon Walled City. I absolutely love Kowloon City.
So, Will, the sci-fi part of it, what is your take on that?
It's a crutch. It's not super important to defining what the series is. I think in the end it should be. I mean, like to say it's a romance mystery is a bit too on the nose. I think the sci-fi part does play a pretty big part in what the mystery is. I can kind of speculate on what it is, but I also don't want to say it because it's potential spoilers.
Right.
But I think like you already laid the seeds of doubt that things were going to be okay, that things are like the way they are. I don't necessarily want to go into my personal theory of what this story is, simply because I've only read 2 volumes and it's not even out yet as an anime. I want people to fully enjoy and explore what this version of the Kowloon Walled City is. But no, I think it's fine to have that kind of sci-fi element in there.
Right. So one of the reasons why I read 5 volumes, other than the fact that I usually just read as much as I want to, is because I wanted to see where the sci-fi-ness part of it kind of develops. And I kind of got my answer and I kind of didn't. And the reason why I mentioned that is because you could kind of ignore that part.
Yeah.
And have it still be an outstanding manga about nostalgia, about love, about trying to explore versus, staying put, idle, and sort of enjoying the now versus it doesn't matter where you were, it doesn't matter where you're going, it just matters now. And I think that essence is captured not only aesthetically in terms of the drawing, the crampedness, the different melting pots. Like it's one of those things where it's like, you know how in certain mangas they kind of plaster it on your face, like, look at this, we are in Paris, here is the Eiffel Tower. In sort of Kowloon generic romance, the setting is just there, but you can kind of, if you look closely at each manga panel, you're like, wow, it's so intricate, wow, there's all these things. It feels like it wasn't forced in a way that like is very captivating.
Yeah, that, again, I have to give props to Mayuzuki essentially capturing 100%, well, 99% of the essence of the Kowloon Walled City. Again, I'm still a bit annoyed about the Taiwanese food, but
yeah, I mean,
but again,
yeah,
right? Like, this is set in the future. Maybe there is a new population of Taiwanese people who want to set up businesses there. Completely understandable. But I also think that's where like the sci-fi part comes in. I think it's just majorly the fact that it's set in the future, and that there is this weird sort of like technology-based kind of thing that's overseeing, or at least kind of bleeding into the Kowloon Walled City. That's where the sci-fi part comes in. I completely agree. If you take out the sci-fi tag from it and replace it with mystery, it wouldn't change a thing. It would legitimately be the same thing. It's just that the sci-fi part is a part of the set. That's basically it. I think the main focus is the romance part, and the romance between two characters, the romance of the city, and what the city means to them. I think that's kind of like where I think the focal point is, at least for me.
And I would say with almost 100% certainty that if it just does one cur, it should try its best to minimize the sci-fi-ness.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Because
I mean, you read beyond.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like, but when you say that though, it's like you have to factor in that it's like they're probably going to adapt 2, maybe 3 volumes.
Yeah.
And so I read 2 volumes. I mean, the sci-fi part doesn't really play that big a part in the first 2 volumes.
Yeah.
So I think that answers your question. They're probably not going to be that heavy in the sci-fi.
Right.
But when they do go beyond, then of course they're going to explore it more. Again, I haven't read beyond Volume 2, so I don't know how sci-fi it gets.
Again, I'm being cryptic. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to say anything about that. But I will just say that probably the first season, if there are going to be multiple seasons, the first season of Kowloon Generic Romance is going to be a really, for at least Will and I would say, a really pleasant kind of trip down memory lane, down, literally the city that we live in, but captured through the eyes of, the anime through Japan. And they do it justice. And I feel like this is one of those shows where I don't know how to kind of describe it, because I think, Will, you and I are kind of in this kind of interesting position where we really know quite a lot, obviously, about Hong Kong and Kowloon, and obviously about the walled city, and also about anime. And I don't think there's a lot of people that intersect that has this kind of unique position.
I don't know. I mean, there's probably a lot of Hong Kong people that are looking forward to this too.
Oh no, for sure. But I mean,
that's a minute population.
Like when we compare to all of anime watchers, right? Like we are like
like you show this to someone in Dusseldorf or like in Houston, they'll be like, okay, it's set in Hong Kong, cool, right? It means a lot more to me and you versus somebody that has never been or like does not know much about the walled city.
And I think because of that, it's really hard for me to pinpoint how this is going to look, how this is going to feel, how this is even going to sound is going to be extremely difficult to know, because you need to have like the background noise. I think in Hong Kong in general, the background noise is kind of a very poignant and a very important aspect of Hong Kong. And the ambiance, I guess, if you will. And I think it's one of those things where 90% of people, it's just going to fly by.
For me, it's got to have an 80s soundtrack. It just has to. It has to capture the essence of the past, but also present itself as something that is set in the future.
That is so hard to do, by the way.
That's how I feel it would be perfect.
Yes.
Now, we did mention, of course, that there is the anime that's coming out. I think, actually, it's scheduled to be April 5th. So not even a month, like literally 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Later down the road, though, there will also be a live-action film adaptation of Kowloon Generic Romance, which is par for the course.
Right.
I mean, they did the same thing with After the Rain.
Yeah.
Right? After the Rain, the manga finished up in March. Leading up to it, they also then released a 12-episode season of After the Rain in anime form. And then, like, shortly afterwards, they had a live-action film version of it. They ran for 2 hours. I'm a little less excited about the live-action one, simply because it takes a lot of time and effort to recreate what the walled city is.
I just don't think it's doable. I mean, you can try.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm more than happy to watch, just because, like, anything regarding the Kowloon walled city, I will absolutely watch. I fucking love Kowloon City. I love what the history was, despite how dark the history can be. yeah, I'll probably watch both the live action and the anime. And I'll probably continue reading the manga. I'm on volume 2. There's 10 volumes out now. At least like in Japanese. I don't know how many of the English. Eight volumes. Nine volumes.
9 volumes.
So there is currently 10 volumes out. April 17th will be the 11th volume in Japanese, and then you can expect the translations to come out shortly afterwards. So yeah, I'm excited. And it's got numbers to boot too. I mean, 1.2 million copies as of December 2024. It's selling like similar numbers to how After the Rain did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, After the Rain ran for 10 volumes and also only had one season. But I think like the one season itself kind of encapsulated the whole series, and then like the ending itself was a bit sort of controversial for people.
Yeah. It is different for sure.
Yeah, but I think it makes some sense that they needed to kind of wrap things up, especially since the manga was already done, and they wanted and they released the last episode at the same time as the last volume came out as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
I think the overlap was like minor. I can definitely pull it up and just confirm. But back on Kowloon Romance, Kowloon Generic Romance, I also understand your perspective of this, where it's like it's kind of hard to see this thing going beyond one season.
Yeah.
Not because of the fact that the studio, not because of the fact that like it's not a good story. It's just the fact that it's hard to see any purpose of this having more than one season. Again, if we're going by Miyazuki's track record, this manga is not going to run that long. I think, like you said, right? 15 to 20 volumes for a romance, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Right? If it's not action, fantasy, adventure, like you do not need to go beyond the 15 volume mark.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll probably wrap up in a couple volumes. Now, whether that means that like we get a second season, that'd be great. I would absolutely love a second season. My worry is how much they're going to condense into those seasons.
And so without really saying why.
Just to confirm.
Mm-hmm.
So March 19, 2018 was when the last volume of After the Rain came out.
Mm-hmm.
March 30th, 2018 was when the last episode of the anime came out.
Okay.
But you know the production already.
Right,
It was done
exactly.
like, way ahead of time, right?
And the creators probably be like, try to wrap it up like this or something.
But like we have an ending in mind if we aren't able to catch up.
Exactly. So, though, the thing that I can only say is, based on how you feel about Kowloon Generic Romance, I would advise you don't read too far ahead. It's really difficult without me to say why, but the story shifts.
I would imagine. I mean, like it would be very dry and boring if it just kept the same tone of the first two volumes all the way throughout to like the 11th volume, right? So there has to be a tone shift of some sort.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to read beyond it, right? I'm probably going to read a lot of it because I'm very invested in this story, in this world that Miyazuki has created, inspired by the Kowloon Walled City. So yeah, I probably will have to. I mean, I'm going to have to.
Yeah, sure.
It's
makes sense.
I mean, how often are we going to get a manga?
No, we don't.
About
the
Kowloon Walled City, man.
We don't. I mean, the fact that even one exists is kind of crazy to me. So there you go. I personally just think that this anime is going to do fine.
So the reason why Miyazuki launched this series was because she actually thought about it while she was still working on After the Rain. She liked the topic about the Kowloon Walled City, and she actually first learned about it from a video game, Kowloon's Gate, that came out in 1997. It's a game that took place in the Kowloon Walled City, set just before the handover of Hong Kong. I'm not going to talk about the whole game itself, but she essentially learned about this world through video games, and I'm pleasantly surprised that was the inspiration. I thought she had been to the Kowloon Walled City.
Yeah, like, I just traveled here and I got inspired, right?
I played a video game about it. Like, okay, that's fair enough. All right, cool. So we've talked about Wandance. We talked about Fragrant Flower, Rooster Fighter, and we just finished wrapping up on Kowloon Generic Romance.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much that needs to be said about Fragrant Flower.
Mm-hmm.
Straightforward, cute romance, very pure, very, very simple. There's no doubt that this is going to do well.
Right.
Wandance, it really comes down to how the choreography and the music comes
The execution of that is extremely important.
But you also know that, since it's being done by
Madhouse,
it's going to at least look good.
I hope so.
Right? Rooster Fighter, you may not think it's going to do well, or at least you may not think it's going to go beyond a season. It might be the case that it does have. What I will say is that the season that comes out is going to be a fun ass time, and then that's it. If you expect more, just keep watching this or watch something else. But it will at least keep you entertained for the 12-week run that it has, or if it has however many episodes it's going to release. Kowloon Generic Romance is the one where like I'm actually, when you said that Rooster Fighter was the quote unquote flop, that's what I thought about Kowloon Generic Romance.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the fact that as far as the story goes, it is a compelling story. It's a good story, but it's a story that means more to me and to certain people than the general populace. Look, Rooster Fighter, big chicken,
right.
fighting monsters. Simple. Everybody can get into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The romance of Fragrant Flower. Simple. Anyone can get into it if you like romance. Wandance. People dancing. Simple. Straightforward. This one, there is a level of complexity to the story, and you were mentioning, hey, look, the sci-fi thing, you might want to keep an eye on and all that. Like,
by the way, this series is seinen as fuck. Okay? Yeah.
That's it too, right?
Yeah.
It's not like an all ages or like an adult thing. It's just the fact that, look, you kids are probably going to think this is boring as fuck.
Yeah. So actually, I kind of see where you're coming from in that this will flop. Maybe it will be a good anime adaptation, but it wouldn't be received as warmly as fervor.
It'll probably be kind of well received. I just don't think it'll go beyond the season.
Yeah.
Which would be weird depending on how it ends.
Yeah. I also am very curious to where they're going to stop if, for whatever reason, they won't do a second season, which is highly likely. If I could even be so dumb and corny, I think if I were to summarize my feelings on Kowloon Generic Romance, it is going to be a manga and an anime that 10 years from now, we're going to be like, bro, this is one of those shows that no one knows, but it is like mandatory that you watch because it's so unique, because it's set in such a unique situation with unique characters. I feel like this is one of those shows where in the moment people won't appreciate. And the hard part is I don't know how it's going to pan out, particularly because I have my own biases of I live in Hong Kong. I feel a certain way about the Kowloon walled city. The stuff that they talk about in the manga, I know or do or feel on a personal level because I live in that city. So it is really tough for me to assess how well it's going to do. On top of the fact that
we can't remove ourselves from it. We grew up in Hong Kong. We know all about the walled city. We've been to the last remnants of it. Have you been to the Kowloon City
the exhibition?
Well, there's an exhibition, but also the park.
I don't think I have.
The park next to it, like it's a park that's dedicated to the whole city. Like
is that the one where they have the diorama?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then I think I did have seen it.
It's a cool place. It's I mean, I was just there like a month ago. It was fun just to see like how everything was deconstructed, rebuilt, and just like what the lifestyle of Kowloon walled city residents were.
I mean, let me put it this way, Will. When you were talking about the intricacies of the cuisine, right, and that it bothered you, you see, I get it.
Yeah.
I legitimately get it, but I can almost bet my life that 98% of the world doesn't know the difference in the sense that they feel like it's just going to be fine.
The thing that initially pissed me off was when they were buying buns, and then the lady's like, "Oh, it's 2 for 30 Hong Kong dollars." I'm like, what the fuck? 30? It's only $7 for one right now, and it's 2025. And then I realized, Oh, right, because it's not actually set during the time of the walled city. It's set in the future, so things are probably going to be more expensive because inflation and all that.
We had to justify ourselves. It
I
was
was
so weird.
I was just like, okay, calm down, Will. This is not the romance of the Kowloon walled city,
and
as
no
you know
one
it.
will give a shit about that.
No, but the thing is, right? Like, I think what you're portraying it as is that like down the road it will develop a cult following,
100%.
Which I think it's a little bit more than that. I mean, it's got a fair amount of members on my anime list. It's published in English, and it's also published in French as well, right? So there is definitely enough people to enjoy it. But I do understand where you're coming from, where it's like this would probably be something that is less appreciated now versus something 10 years down the road.
Okay. Also, I feel like this is one of those shows where it will look great as a wallpaper.
Oh, dude, it looks fantastic. Dude, like, okay.
Yeah?
This is like the first like couple of panels where you see Keijo sitting outside her caged balcony, cigarette in one hand, a plate of watermelon in the other, and it slowly zooms out to her just being...
It's too cinematic, bro.
You just see her head in the middle of the O amongst a cluster of slums and apartments, the side view of the walled city. I was just like, this is perfect. This is what the walled city is.
And the art is so good. It is so it is like, okay,
What's also really great too, and the reason why I say that like it should have an 80s soundtrack is because it's drawn in an 80s style.
Yes, very much so. Especially if you know the comics of that era, like in Hong Kong, it very much draws that inspiration.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's also just so happens to be the style of the mangaka as well.
Plus, not to mention as well, dude, Keijo looks sexy as fuck.
Yeah,
like
she's
curves,
right?
She's working her keipo as well, like her chipao, and she's just like she fits the aesthetic of 80s Hong Kong.
So here's the thing, Will. So
like the short hair,
mm-hmm.
Dude. Every like Stephen Chow movie where we had a female lead had that short hair.
Yeah,
right. Anita Mui had that short hair.
Yes. So
like don't take that romance. You see where I mean? Like where I'm like, what I see Cujo in myself as well. It's like that's why like I love the future. I love what new things hold for us. But at the same time, like I want to hold on to the last remnants of what Hong Kong means to me. Which is why like whenever I go out and eat in Hong Kong, I always feel like I'm just judging everything because it didn't taste as good as it did, or like things weren't cheap like they used to be, or it just doesn't have that essence anymore. And like, but that's just the reality for me. You know, like I want to hold on to those things because those things were important to me.
Yeah, I think Kowloon generic romance is anything but generic, but it is hella romantic.
Whether it's definitely set in Kowloon.
It's definitely set in Kowloon. Okay, so but it's romantic in so many ways, and I'll get to that. But I think one of the things that I will highlight that really emphasizes probably how I feel about Kowloon generic romance is that when you see the cover of every single issue, there is a little explicit parental warning tag in the bottom right of every single volume. Now, let me tell you, as someone who read 5 volumes of it, there is nothing that really propels me to say that why I should have that parental tag. Because whenever I see that tag in mangas, it's like they show boobs, like the nipples, they show gratuitous violence, and even that is kind of exaggerated a bit in terms of giving it a lot of leeway. But when I look through Kowloon generic romance as the manga, despite having that tag, there is none of that in terms of gratuitous nudity. In fact, it's just none of that, period. It's just not that.
It's elegant.
Yeah.
It's elegantly nostalgic is what it is.
But why I think though it deserves the explicit tag is because it's explicit in the sense that you're not going to get it unless if like you're an adult. Cuz if you, unfortunately, look, I'm not trying to put down people, but if you are of a certain age, you won't get this. You won't like it. You won't like the show. You won't like the manga. I don't care if you don't.
Maybe, but it's not likely.
It's not likely. There is, because the nostalgia factor.
This is for old people, okay? This is for us.
It's for older people. How about that?
This is for people who were born in the 90s and beyond, right? Like if you're a 2000s kid, this shit ain't for you. I'm sorry.
Because the nostalgia aspect of it even when the sci-fi stuff starts to ramp up, becomes like the most important part of it. And people letting go of the past, staying in the past when time doesn't give a fuck and moves forward regardless. The nostalgia factor and the things that it kind of makes me think about. When I really like a manga, it's when it allows me to think about the manga on a personal level, and when I am not reading it or when I'm not watching the anime.
God damn it, Jason! Okay, you convinced me. I'm not gonna wait for the live action to watch it with my wife. I'm gonna make her watch the anime with me when it drops next month. I can't wait.
But I don't know how this is going to play out.
I don't care. I think
true.
that's the thing too. I think in the end, like, again, it's for you and for me. Like, at least very much for me. I just want to see a story about the Kowloon Walled City.
Yeah,
I want to see how the characters play in it. And I mean, from reading the volumes that I've read so far, Mayuzuki really, really did her research, and she does not like fluff around and take away the Taiwanese food. It's everything that I remember the Kowloon Walled City to be. Maybe minus the sci-fi part.
Yeah, because
you don't have like massive octahedron fucking drones like flying around the sky
and having it stay there like a leviathan. Yeah,
but there were definitely a lot of plastic surgeons in that area.
Yeah, and weird shit here and there that kind of creeps up on you, but could it be just the walled city? Could it just be my memories, nostalgia?
So to surmise, and this is just,
that's so hard
for me.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
The one that I'm most looking forward to, funny enough, is Rooster Fighter. I want to see how dumb and crazy this shit plays out in motion with the sound and everything. It already looks and sounds pretty decent to me on the trailer. You might have different thoughts about it, but I was satisfied with it. And it's bound to be a fun time. Wondance, if they nail the choreography, it'll be a good show. It'll be like Dance Dance Dancer. It'll be like The Medalist. You just got to make sure that all your parts are in the right place and just let it do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing to say about Fragrant Flower that blooms with dignity. Is that what the title is?
Yes.
Something with dignity, right?
The Fragrant Flower blooms with dignity,
okay.
yes.
Yes, got it right. That's just going to be a fluff show. It's going to be fluffy.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be pretty.
You might be a little heartbroken every now and then, but like it's going to be a fun time. The one that I am most looking forward to, though, is unfortunately, like, I can't remove my bias. Kowloon Generic Romance. I just have to see the beauty of this show.
For me, the most one that I'm curious about is Wandance, because I think that one is, when I say anime, when we do, add ASAPs.
You just want to see it done right.
Yeah. There is a lot of compatibility and transitions that you can make from manga to anime in almost like a 1-to-1. I'm not trying to reduce it like that, but there is a lot of the blueprint there, such that the anime adaptation is very much going to be in the same vibe or the same story as the manga. That's why we even do the ASAP in the first place.
Yep.
Wandance, though, you literally cannot, due to copyright issues of the music, first of all, right? Then the other thing is, it could look a certain way or feel a certain way in the manga, but then if you don't execute it in the choreography when it becomes motion, you're fucked. But that aside, I think Kowloon Generic Romance is going to be one of those shows that I don't know how I'm going to feel about it, based just solely on my own circumstances, my own upbringing, and the fact that it is about a time that I was at least aware of, that Will is aware of, and it talks.
I mean, I can't imagine little Jason running around the streets of Kowloon Walled City, buying fish balls and being mugged by heroin addicts and all that.
Yeah. Don't. At least I'm here live in one piece, right? But it is the theme. It is sort of when I read Kowloon Generic Romance, it made me contemplate and think about a lot of things that in general you usually don't think about when you read a manga or watch an anime. And I'm pretty sure that the anime will give everyone that kind of vibe. Like when I were talking about aura or vibe, this is one of those shows and one of those mangas where it is a literal mood instead of an aura or a vibe. It is like, let me put this as my screensaver, as my wallpaper, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in that I want to encapsulate this beauty and show it on my screen every time, I turn on my computer, my laptop, or my TV. And I think Kowloon Generic Romance, we will never get another anime or manga like that. And it is such a difficult manga and anime to pin down.
I mean, just to have somebody who has an affinity to the Kowloon Walled City based on a video game they played that came out 30 years ago, like, yo, we're not going to see that again.
Yeah, that confluence of different convergence is just impossible at this point. Like, it's just not going to happen. It's a thing of the past. So, that's how I feel about it.
We got some good anime coming out. I mean, I don't think any of these are going to fail in the sense that they're going to be terrible shows. Whether or not any of these... Okay, look. The most likely to get another season is Fragrant Flower.
Yes, 100%.
100%.
Easy.
But the other ones, who knows? If they do well, I'm glad to watch more of it. There's absolutely nothing holding me back from watching any of them. Look, even if Rooster Fighter gets a second season, I'll watch more. I want to see this cockfight a bunch of fucking monsters.
For me, I just think I'll watch 4 episodes and
I
like,
I get it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. But yeah.
Like there has to be like a ceiling, a plateau to the amount of insanity there is, right? And so therefore they need to sort of, pivot and focus more on like the actual plot, which is, KG going off and fighting monsters to avenge his sister, and then he finding out who the white demon is.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll see.
But will we get there in anime form? I wouldn't think so.
But what we will get to is the end of this episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Good Anime Palette Podcast. If you want to, we greatly appreciate you leaving a rating or review on your podcast platform of choice. You can contact us through our email, gapalette@gmail.com, GAPALETTE, all lowercase, all one word. We are on social medias, at Palette Good, capital P and capital G, all one word. And we also have a website, www.goodanimepalette.com, all lowercase, all one word. Music credits for this episode: Life is a Party by John Runefelt. Our break music is Chemistry Love by Swift7, and our outro music is Voyage by Pow. You can support the music artists that we feature by listening to them on Spotify, Apple Music, or your music listening platform of choice. And Epidemic Sound provides all of our royalty-free music. If you're interested, you can sign up using the referral link in our show description. Terms and conditions apply.
You heard that?
Yeah, I heard that.
That wasn't a fart. That was just me moving the mic arm.
Sure. Well, no, I'm just kidding. No, I think we can always wax lyrical about Kowloon Generic Romance for hours.
I mean, we did. We legitimately, we spent 20 minutes to 25 minutes each talking about Wandance, Fragrant Flower, and Rooster Fighter. We spent almost an hour just talking about Kowloon Generic Romance. And even when we were surmising our feelings of the overall season, overall ASAP, we just
went back, right?
Because, it doesn't happen. Right? When I saw it on the docket and you're like, oh, there's Kowloon Generic, what's that? Oh, it's a romance set in the Kowloon Walled City. Fuck it. We're talking about that. Oh, but I got all these other mangas. We can check. No. That's one of them. Oh, okay. All right, cool. Done.
When I was suggesting it, I was thinking about suggesting it to you, I was ready for you to shoot it down.
Why?
I don't know. I just felt like you were
Why? Is it a romance?
No. I just had a feeling that it would just be like, who gives?
No, I have too much love for the Kowloon Walled City. I absolutely love the lore and the history of it.
And you guys,
the lore of Kowloon Walled
and if
City.
you're listening and you think that we're crazy, you can come to Hong Kong and see for yourself the hustle and bustle, and you can even go to remnants of the Kowloon Walled City. You can even obviously watch tons of YouTube videos.
Go to the temples. Go to the park. Get some soy milk, fish balls. End your night with a chu chow or a Thai dinner. Like the Thai food there is fucking incredible.
So, I think that's what Will and I are going to do for the time being.
Now I want some Thai food.